Well, welcome everyone to the Academic Speaker Series. I'm Lynn Shea. I'm a professor in the Liberal Studies Department, and I also coordinate the Academic Speaker Series. I also want to welcome our audience for BCTV. And I hope you're ready to do a little writing. This will be sort of a workshop format. I'm going to have Alice Fogel introduce our speaker today. Alice, you may have met in the Drake Center, where she provides academic support. You may not have known that Alice is also served previously as the New Hampshire Poet Laureate, and is a very accomplished poet. So without further ado, Alice.
Welcome. So there's been a really nice detailed bio of Alexandria going around, listing lots of her books and her education and the work that she does. She teaches at Salem State College. And I'm not going to repeat all that, although it's really impressive. But I just wanted to say that as the current New Hampshire State Poet Laureate, she's doing a lot of projects. She's started a journal for teens. She's created a writing conference in northern New Hampshire. She's working with doing poetry workshops to children who have been affected by the opioid crisis. And she's doing all this while teaching and having a family and writing and doing presentations all over. She's just got an amazing amount of energy. And I've known Alex through the poetry world for a while. She's really passionate about both creative writing and composition and rhetoric. And she's certainly had a lot of prolific moments herself. She's written a lot. But today she's going to talk about something that I think she's maybe particularly interested in, which is mindfulness and how it can help us to write more confidently. So I want you to get out your writing tools and listen up and enjoy Alex, her humor, her warmth, her wit, her experience, and her big heart.
Thank you, Alice. That's a lot to live up to. And I want to thank Lynn Shea for inviting me. And I'm so happy to be here today. What a beautiful day, beautiful campus, and beautiful looking people. So I'm very, very happy. Can you hear me? Am I audible enough? I have a very loud voice. Just note, if you can't hear me at any point in time, just say I can't hear you, okay? So here's the deal. Too many people treat writing like public speaking, like I'm doing right now. I can't stop time and say, oh, I don't like the language I just used, or the body language, or the tone, and freeze time and go into your minds and take stuff out and revise. That's how most people behave. They behave when they're writing as though they're public speaking. They give up the privacy and freedom of the present moment while writing in exchange for a host of stressors. I think many of us would agree writing can be a pretty stressful situation, right? It's a poor bargain. I think almost every writing problem and almost every writing experience that's challenging and unpleasant, stressful, etc., can be chalked up to mindlessness. In other words, not noticing the present moment. Here's what we hand ourselves when we overlook the present moment. We think about our judges, our critics, our editors, if we're professional writers, our teachers, our grades, outcomes, results, long-term consequences. In the future, we think about the past, our past failures, past criticisms, past negative experiences with writing. We load ourselves up with stress when we are not aware of the present moment when we write. Conversely, when you actually start noticing the here and now when you write, you gain access to a whole new set of tools that are not taught in school traditionally. What do I mean by that? When you notice the present moment, the first thing that you recognize, that you see, is that we have monkey mind. Take a wild guess. What do you think monkey mind is? It's that nonstop inner chatter. Anybody who's meditated at all will tell you that as soon as you're sitting on the cushion, you start talking to yourself. Language is inevitable. So you gain access to your monkey mind, but here's the thing about the monkey mind, okay? It is double-faced. It's kind of like a friend you can't count on. Here's why, okay? One, it's a friend because that monkey mind, you always have language. There's always language. There's always something to write constantly because there's that river of language. But two, that monkey mind is busy making arguments between yourself and with yourself about your own writing ability, You are busy convincing yourself of your own writing ability from moment to moment, either about the assignment you're working on right now or about your general writing ability, like I'm not very good with poetry or I write really terrific introductions, anything like that. Your monkey mind is telling you that. So this is one of the tools in the toolkit that comes to mind when we're actually staying aware of the present, okay? The second thing is, and we won't have a chance to get into, we only have an hour, so we don't have a chance to go into great depth about a lot of these. The second one is the body. When have you been asked, maybe you have, I don't know, I'd love to have a longer conversation if so, okay, to pay attention to your physical state when you write. The body is actually a host of all kinds of insights about what's going on and about language, etc. But students are routinely asked to pretend they don't exist physically when they write, and most writers the same way. But like I said, that one we don't have much time to talk about today because that could be a long conversation. The third tool, because there are 3 tools in that toolbox that come from paying attention to the present. So monkey mind, the body, and the third tool is something you probably associate with Buddhism, impermanence. Everything is constantly changing. Nothing is static. And that constant change, it's not scary. It's actually a writer's #1 friend. Let me tell you why. You are never fixed. You are never a bad writer. You're never a good writer. It's always in flux. And moreover, if you're having a bad moment with writing, you stay in the present moment. Pretty quickly, if you're staying mindful, it changes. Okay, so impermanence, monkey mind, and then the embodiment. So those are the tools when we start paying attention to the present moment. I want to give a basic definition of mindfulness, and it comes from a guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn. Okay, so mindfulness in general, not about writing, it's the ability to perceive the ever-changing present moment with detachment. And so what's mindful writing? Mindful writing, and I want you to listen to this definition for a second. I think you're going to hear some words that you think, dang, that actually might help me with my writing. Mindful writing, detached, non-judgmental. Does that sound kind of like a good thing? Non-judgmental awareness of that ever-changing present moment for the purposes of writing. Every moment is new and inventive and full of possibility. Every moment can be a prolific moment, meaning you can write a lot at any time. So I've done this for many years. I've given many talks, and I am so incredibly fortunate because at Salem State University, where I teach both undergrad and graduate courses on mindful writing. It's the luckiest part of my life. I absolutely adore it. And I can tell you something here, as someone who also struggled for years with a crippling writing block. I do not have one now. Everybody who tries this method, everybody who tries it becomes productive, prolific, writes with more ease, happiness, less stress, okay? So that's a general sense of the mindfulness. I want to give you a few more thoughts here. In our time this afternoon, I'm going to walk you through each of those tools as best I can in our limited time and give you hands-on practice. This is why you should have some paper or a laptop and a pen or whatever, okay? But I gotta tell you 3 caveats, 3 little stipulations first, okay? Just something that you should know. Mindlessness is overlooking the present, is really difficult to stop doing, okay? It takes practice and it takes patience with yourself. The average human ability to stay present, and I'll tell you something, I'm a mindful writing person, right? I am not here right now. You may think, well, she's physically standing in front of me, she's talking her mouth off. How is it possible? I'll tell you what, I'm not here right now. I'm not. You know, you would probably be a little afraid too if you were giving a public speak, but it's that I know the moment when I'm actually here, and I'll let you know, okay? But probably will happen at some point. I'll be looking at somebody's face and say, I'm here, okay? We off-road from the present moment all the time. The average human ability to stay aware of the present moment, anybody want to guess how long the average human ability is? How long do you think? Dang, you're good. Did you know that off your head? You did. It's 5 to 12 seconds. Excellent. Okay. And I think a Harvard study or some study said we were typically 76% of our day we're not present. All right. So that was very good. So between 5 to 12 seconds, we routinely walk around our lives doing a whole host of things mindlessly. We mindlessly talk, we mindlessly eat, cross the room, check our cell phones, on our gadgets, mindlessly eat. Did I say that? Mindlessly brush your teeth, mindlessly walk the dog, you mindlessly drive. So why would writing be any different? Well, in point of fact, traditional school has made it more challenging. Traditional school has taught students throughout the ages to be mindless. Traditional school has not taught you how to walk, but it has taught you how to be mindless writers. So a lot of people are trying to become more mindful in their lives, and we might wonder, you know, what we are missing out on if we're not trying this in our writing lives. Thich Nhat Hanh, who recently died about 3 weeks ago, I think, Vietnamese monk, friend of Martin Luther King. Listen to what he said. He said, "We have an appointment with life in the present moment." We have an appointment with life in the present moment. If we miss the present moment, we miss our appointment with life. By the way, I'm here now. Second caveat. This isn't Buddhism per se. I don't teach Buddhism at Salem State University. That would not be, I don't have the expertise in it for one thing, okay? Why? Okay, it's amplified mindfulness, practical. In the world of mindfulness, there's mindful eating, walking, listening, talking. Am I forgetting any? I think that's pretty much it. Mindful speech, right? You don't need to be sitting on a cushion to have applied mindfulness. So mindful writing is one of those applications of mindfulness. Third point. Here's why it's also not Buddhism. When somebody is in a Buddhist monastery, as I have been, you are not allowed to write or talk, okay? And so when Allen Ginsberg was at a Buddhist monastery, the poet, and he had a little notebook by his side because he wanted to get ideas while he was meditating, rumor has it that the monks would come up to him with a stick, or the nuns, but it was probably monks, and right, his shoulder. You're not supposed to be writing while you're doing this meditation. Okay? This is why this is not Buddhism per se, because what we are after as mindful writers is a productive mindlessness. You all know that experience of having something you're working on and it actually is going okay, and you look up and you go, oh, wow, that was an hour, what happened there? I actually had an okay time, and I just wrote in a state of flow, right? That is what I'm after when I help people with this method. I want people to enter that state of flow. I don't want them to be always distracted by what's happening in the present. However, here's the thing. If someone goes on in that state of flow without noticing the present, inevitably, they become beached on the shore of a mindlessness, a block that's not productive. So the deal with this method is you use it to get to the point where you're feeling okay about writing and you're producing a lot and you're happy and you're doing flow, but the moment it stops and you're feeling some doubts about yourself or what you're up to, you go back to the mindfulness techniques and ride it out until you're in that state. So I wanted to say that. Okay, so what's the deal with this mindful writing process? There are really 3 parts to it. And I'm going to give you a little taste of each one today. That's my goal, okay? First thing is, we want to settle into the present moment. We want to be here and be now. And we want to do that for our writing and through our writing. For ourselves as human beings, but also for our writing or our student work or whatever we're doing. So part 1, settling into the present moment. Part 2, observing the present moment to create, to write, to think, to do the work of writing, being a student. Part 3, it's very important to mindfully do self-care. And I'm going to show you a method to that at the very end. Okay, so let's get to the first step here. So as I said, this is what I tell my students too. If we're not residing in the present, we can't do the other things, which is noticing what's happening with our writing lives, making any changes, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second. You can't see what you need to change. And then lastly, last part would be taking any measures that you feel changing it, mitigating the circumstance if it's not working. So let's get some activities going so you think, okay, she said all these things to me, blah, 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 but what does it really mean? Okay, you all have paper? Can you all get paper out and something to write with? Or a screen, whatever you have. Okay. The first thing to do to settle into the present moment has to do with embodiment. I didn't write the other ones on the board, but remember we got monkey mind, that chatter in our heads. We've got embodiment, awareness of our physical presence, and then lastly, impermanence, right? Those are the 3 tools that come to the foreground with a mindful writing perspective. So what's the deal with the body? We could go on for hours, and I have taught like large weeks of this, right? But just in a nutshell, you never breathe in the future. You breathe right now. Everything is happening right now. You do not breathe in the future. You breathe in a now, a now, a now, a now. And so, you know meditators are all about breathing, right? There's a reason why. Here's why. A whole host of reasons. By paying attention to the human breathing, the breath, you're automatically gaining entrance into the present moment because it is occurring here and now. Plus, there are physiological benefits, your stress levels, the hormones that are stressful, all those things that are going on go away, your pulse lowers, you're calmer, you're more receptive to things. Plus, breathing is obviously free, hopefully, right? Free, always going to happen, and everybody has access to it. It's not like you have to buy it like a textbook. It's in your body. And lastly, it's cool because no one needs to know. You don't know if I'm meditating right now. I could be, right? No one needs to know if you're meditating because it's such an internal, private looking act, right? Okay, so we're going to try something. This first part will not yield writing for your papers or your short stories or your poems, but it will get you in the moment. So it's a device to get you residing in the moment. Okay, I'm going to ring these bells. They're tiny. These are Buddhist bells. Tiny, but I got to warn you, what is it, trigger warning? They're loud, okay? So when I teach on Zoom, sometimes if I don't raise them into the screen, it can be kind of upsetting because they're very, very loud. I'm going to ring these bells and I'm going to walk you through, very briefly, a basic seated meditation. Very, very briefly. And then I'm going to ask you to do something. And just try it. All I ask is that you keep an open mind to what we're about to try. And as I said, that the first activity is not to get you writing per se. It's to get you in the moment through writing, matching awareness of the body with language. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Whoa! Can everybody hear me, or am I loud enough? Am I good enough? Okay. All right, so here goes. Okay, sitting in your chair. Do not have your back to the back of the chair, so sit towards the front if you can, and have your feet squarely on the ground. Uncross your legs if your legs are crossed. Feet squarely on the ground. And I'm not sitting, but just imagine I'm sitting. It's as though somebody has a piece of twine and they're very gently pulling you straight. Very gently. It's like you don't have to exert much effort. Somebody's keeping you straight here. And then your hands like this, or cupping the knees. So drop the pens and pencils, and so either on your knees, cupping them, or like that, whatever you prefer. And so I imagine you probably have had pretty busy days. It's what, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or thereabouts, bless you. You probably had pretty busy days and lots going on, right? A lot on your mind. So breathing in through the masks, which is always fun, huh? Breathing in, ideally through your nose, but if you have to do the mouth, that's cool, okay? Draw all of your mind just to the physical sensations of breathing in through the mask, down the nose, and think to yourself, here. Breathing out, watch all the physical sensations of exhalation and think to yourself, now. And if you find your mind, we're not going to do this too long, but if you find your mind off-roading, just gently pull it back to that breathing, okay? Okay, so I'm going to ask you a series of questions. It's not graded, don't worry about that, or anything like that. In fact, you don't have to, you can throw it away afterwards. I mean, it's nothing serious here, okay? The next breath you take, I'm going to ask you to observe it. So the next inhalation and exhalation, and try to write down the response you have to what I say without judging, censoring, fixing, doing anything like that. Just write it down, okay? So the next breath you take, inhalation and exhalation. If it had a color or colors, what color or colors is the next breath? The next breath, watch it. If it had a shape, what shape does the next breath have? Two more. The next breath, if it had a temperature or temperatures, what are you noticing about that breath? And very last one. The next breath, I want you to really dig deep, like breathe down to the lower part of your anatomy. So don't be a chest breather, just really let it expand, that inhalation. And what I want you to do this time is imagine the breath as you do that as a container. It has something inside it. Don't censor it. What do you see inside it? Okay, can you shout out and say a few? And I'm not saying mine are kind of weird, so I'm willing to say some of mine. Like for instance, the last one for me, I'm not going to judge it. I had a broken umbrella that turned into a crow. I have no idea where that came from. Can we hear two other people, just three people, just say it? What temperature, shape, blah, blah, blah. Somebody say something. Yes, please.
So I kind of felt like it was in the shape of a circle.
Cool. Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else? Yeah.
I had an orb inside mine.
Cool. What kind of an orb?
Just kind of like the classic kind of glowy, floaty orb.
Cool. Anybody else want to go for, what are the color? We haven't heard of color.
Orange.
Orange. Interesting. A lot of orange.
Yellow.
Yellow. And what are we missing one?
Red.
Red, okay. Let's hear one more on this side of the room. Can somebody say something? Yes, please. Yes, please. What's that?
Orange.
Orange, cool. Orange, by the way, is the color associated with thinking. That's kind of interesting. What were you going to say? Blue. Ah, all right. So what's the deal with that? You're never going to get an essay out of that or probably a poem or anything like that. But that is an activity matching language to the act of breathing. You start noticing breathing more if you describe it. So let's move on to the next one here. Okay, so the next one is called yoga for hands. You know yoga? You know when you go to, yeah, exactly. You know yoga, only it's for hands. So here's the deal. I personally think that, and I really believe this, more often than not, when someone is stuck with their writing, it would do far more good for that person to spend a minute or two thinking about the way their hands feel as they write than thinking about any audience or outcome. Okay? So I'm going to model something for you. Do you all know what free writing is? That's like, you just write, just keep going, type, 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 handwriting. Although I've got prompts for you. So this is like not worrying about fixing anything. You're just going around, right? Okay. So first off, we're going to start this free write returning to the Thich Nhat Hanh quote. I'm going to say it again. Can I just say it, or do you need me to put it on the board? It's kind of long, but what do you need me to do? I could put it on the board if you want. Can I just say it? Okay. Could you please start free writing to the Thich Nhat Hanh quote? In other words, whatever comes to mind about it. And this is the quote again, okay? What is it? I have to find it. It is, ready? We have an appointment with life in the present moment. If we miss the present moment, we miss our appointment with life. Okay, so free write, just whatever comes to mind about it. Yeah.
Put that on the board, please. That would be
Yeah, I can. Just give me a sec. Okay, I hope you can read my chicken scrawl, but it says, we have an appointment with life in the present moment. If we miss the present moment, we miss our appointment with life, okay? So just start free writing about that. But now, turn away from the quote in your free write and make the subject of your free write now the sensation of your fingers holding that mechanical pencil or pen or typing. So as you free write, the subject of your free write is just your fingertips, how it feels. Now change the subject of your free write as you're free writing to your finger bones. What do the bones in your fingers feel like in your hand as you're typing and free writing? if those bones in your hand or fingers were not bones in your hand or finger, but something else in the world, what does it remind you of, that sensation? What does it remind you of?
So are you asking if our bones were not bones?
Exactly. What's it remind you of? So that, are you
Okay.
typing? Yeah, you're typing. So what does it feel like if it weren't fingers? What does that feel like? Okay. Now we're moving a little fast, so you can do this slower at home. We usually spend about 20 minutes or so doing this at class or in practice. Now move the subject of your free write as you're typing to your arms. How does it feel, both arms, even if you're handwriting? What do you notice about your arms? Make that the subject of your free write. Please move to your shoulders. How do your shoulders feel as you type or handwrite? Your neck and the back of your skull. Your neck and the back of your skull. Now your face, even under the mask, any tension you feel, what do you feel on your face? Just your face. Your forehead, just there. And lastly, the crown of your head, the very top of your head. As you write, what do you notice about the top of your head? And now, whatever homework assignment you have in writing or personal writing project you're working on, when you think about it, what comes to mind? Without censorship, what do you hear? Okay, so you just experienced yoga for hands, and the point is to start occupying the now through paying attention to your physical states, right? Just take a moment here. We don't need to talk about this, or I don't need to ask you guys. Just check in on yourself right now. You feel any different than you did when you first came into the room? Okay. So that was the first part, settling into the moment, to be here, be now. Let's move to the second stage. Okay. The second stage is noticing your audience demons and your reader ghosts. Because when you write, when you're writing, there is no audience, there is no reader. The reader is not in your dorm room, I hope. Your teacher's not in the dorm room. My editors are not in my study when I write. I don't know, what everybody else writes for. They are not physically present. They do not share the same space and time, the same present moment as you do. And in fact, most people act as though their readers, their judges, their teachers are sitting at the edge of their desk, coming from the future, judging them here and now. They slow down, they procrastinate. Doing the litter box, getting their oil changed is more attractive than writing. It becomes a real drag because you act like you have to be perfect in the moment. So the deal is this: we're going to try to evoke who it might be that is bothering you in your writing. And we're doing this right now in a group, in an auditorium, but you can also do it on speed dial at home. When you start doing, or in your dorm, start doing an assignment, run through these quickly. Try to get a sense of who you think you are talking to in the moment, public speaking to, even though they're not in the room. Because in point of fact, that monkey mind that was on the board at the beginning, you are talking to yourself in that moment. That reader, that teacher, that editor in my case, is a fabrication of my self-talk. And I should probably tell you a brief anecdote about this, just to make my point. 2 brief anecdotes here. Okay, here goes. The first one. I was working on a book with a colleague for a very stressful, trust me, stressful British publisher, like super stressful publisher. Every time I wrote to the editor, his name was, I got his permission to say this, Frederick Spear, even the name alone, Frederick Spear, right? Even that person's name alone. Every time I sent an email to that person, I envisioned, maybe you're already a British publisher, big one, right? I'm envisioning a guy in a tweed jacket with these patches on his elbow and a pipe and a beard and all this. This is who I'm writing to. And I'm nervous, and it's affecting how I communicate in my emails, let alone write the book, right? Okay, so I go to the major national convention of writers, publishers, and I see way off in the distance the banner in the hotel, the huge hotel. I see a banner. And it has the publisher's name as a person standing underneath the banner. So I call up my co-writer and I was like, hey, Tom, I think Frederick Spear might be here. I'm gonna go introduce myself, okay? So as I'm walking over to that, the booth from that publisher, there isn't a guy with a pipe and a tweed jacket and the leather patches. Frederick Spear was about 25 years old. Lots of interesting facial hair, full sleeve tattoos and piercings. And why do I know full sleeve tattoos? Because he's kind of wearing an S&M outfit. Okay, now, so point of fact is, that is the person, that is the editor, Frederick Spear, and I do have his permission. Okay, he does know I'm saying these things. That was the person who I was interacting with. So afterwards, once I saw him, I realized I had that scary guy with the pipe and the tweed jacket was a fabrication of my mind. Second point, just to show this, sometimes people say, what are you talking about? This audience in the head thing. That can't affect anybody. That's just like makeup, right? Okay, listen to this experiment. I've done this many years with my students. I have my students free write, like you all did at the beginning, right? And I put a little quote on the board, and I say, okay, we're all going to free write for 10 minutes, or whatever it is. And I set my cell phone alarm on, so I get the exact amount of time, right? And they're free writing away, and I'm like secretly looking at them, like they don't know it, but I'm like looking at certain people, and I'm taking notes on their body language, and I'm just watching them a little bit, right? And then I go, whoops, made a mistake. Of course I didn't make a mistake. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong quote. Of course I didn't. It's all, I know what I'm doing. I gave you the wrong quote. I said, okay, this is the quote. And you know what, I think this time we're gonna write, and then I'm just gonna randomly poke my hands at the attendance sheet, and I'm gonna pick 2 of you to read the whole thing out loud afterwards, okay? So then they start writing. I got my little cell phone going because I got to get the exact same time. Right? I mean, because I'm doing this for a reason. And I'm watching the same people like Is their body language vastly different? Are they sighing a lot? And because I teach in computer labs, I can also hear the sounds of the typing. And for the second one, it's like popcorn, you know, right? Because what are they doing? They're deleting, deleting, pausing, deleting, deleting. They're not free writing anymore. Then I say to them, I said, no, I'm sorry, this is actually an experiment. I'm not really going to poke my hand at the attendance sheet. I said, can you all add up the word count collectively of the whole class for the first free write? And we get a number. And I say, okay, can we all now add up the collective word count of the second free write? So what do you guess? Which one has the higher word count? Exactly. Sometimes as high as 76% more words produced in the first occasion. Why is that? Because they are all thinking, of course, it could be me. She might call on me. So they're importing the next 10 minutes into their writing moment, worrying about what their peers might think, of course, right? About their writing, and it's slowing down the content, the quality too probably, but the rate at which they produced, and their body language was totally different. There'd be more sighs. There would be people going like this over their pieces, which means that they're kind of defensive and they don't want people seeing it, they're scared of it. All kinds of things. Isn't that crazy? So for you guys, we're gonna try something. We're going to summon, like, I don't know how many people are in the room right now, about 30, 40. We're going to summon about 25, 30 ghosts right now into this room. So here goes. I'm going to walk you through a caricature. You know a caricature when you go to the mall and you pay or a fair and you pay 20 bucks and you get your look, you know, your drawing done of you. You've ever seen those? But we're doing a verbal, like with writing, not drawing, caricature. I'm going to walk you through some prompts. Trust me, there's a reason for it. Just try, okay? So here goes. Can everybody, here, the first one's just think. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, so I would just run with the first thing that comes to your mind. Can you think of an occasion in which you had to write something? And I mean, it could be school, it could be your college essay application, it could be business writing, it could be a cover letter for a job, it could be personal writing, anything, okay? In which it was a major drag for you. Can everybody get one thing in their mind where you just were scared, you hated it, you dreaded it, it was a drag? Can everybody get one in their head? Okay, you all got it? There's something up there? Okay. Now, and we'll keep this private, so you're not saying it out loud, although I'd love to see them, but we're going to keep it private. You're working on that piece. Actually, can people shout out, unless it's an assignment that a teacher in the room did. Is anybody doing stuff from outside of school? Like, what's the genre here? Yeah, just shout it.
Cyberpunk.
Okay, that's so you're working on that. And it was right? Oh, that's super cool. And it was a moment where you were like, did not want to work on it.
No, not exactly. I came up with this idea because I didn't want to write about poems. So I'm writing something from a prompt from a friend.
Okay, that's cool. So what I'm asking is, was there a time in your life, like for me, maybe writing my college application essay? Can we hear a few kinds of writing that stress people out? Yes.
Writing a poem for Maggie Hassan's inauguration.
Oh, can you imagine writing a poem for the governors in not? How much more stressful? I mean, we all have stresses, but that's pretty darn stressful. Okay, now Alice, now they don't want to answer. Can somebody else say one here? Just do it. Okay, yes, please.
A letter when you have to tell somebody like bad news.
Oh, bad news letter, a no letter, right? Probably, or just bad news.
Just bad news.
Bad news.
They have to share something.
Yeah, awesome. Anybody else want to try for one here? When I think about things, so yeah, what was that? Okay, when I think about stuff that's tough to write, there's quite a few, but you all probably have like a school assignment. I can't tell. Did you want to say something? Sorry, okay, yeah, just yell. You're being volunteered there. No, okay. All right, so here's the deal. You got that occasion in your mind, okay? Now here's where it gets to be fun. Just go back in time. You're working on that piece. You're working on the poem from Maggie Hassan or that paper that was just a real drag or the bad news letter. You're working on this right now. When someone comes into your room, don't overthink it. Here goes. Ready? What does this person's face look like? What does this person's face or hair look like? But like a caricature, you know how caricatures, there's always something off about the way the face is drawn, exaggerated? I want you to exaggerate one facial attribute. So what does the face look like? Now, their body is very tiny, like in a caricature, you know, those drawings, very tiny. And there's something weird about their clothing or their jewelry or whatever. Or shoes. What is their clothing, jewelry, whatever? What's weird about it too? This person starts to say something to you about your writing. What comes out of their mouth? What do they say to you about your writing? And of course, you're probably using your imagination. But as they say it, you realize they have an ulterior motive, a secret reason for why they're saying what they're saying to you. And of course, again, you're using your imagination. What's their real motive for saying that to you? What's their real motive? Then you look at the person's shoulder, and there's a tiny little person on the person's shoulder, the person who's bothering you. There's a little person. That little person, exactly, that little person is the person that bothered your person. You get what I'm saying here? Who is that little person on your tricky audience? Of course, you're totally making this up, but there's a reason afterwards. Who is that little person, and how do they bother your person? Your person starts to try to talk again. And as they talk, they're complaining to you or criticizing you for your writing. What are they saying? But in the middle of whatever they're saying, something gets distorted, goes out of control, out of their control about how they're saying. What happens to what they're saying to you? Something goes out of their control. What is it? They're getting really frustrated. How do you know? What about their body language or the way they're acting? You know they're frustrated. What is it? Now the fun part. This big person that's bothering you, put them in a container of your choice. Litter boxes are very popular with my students, but of your choice, a container of your choice. What kind of container are you going to put them in? And now, there's something really icky at the bottom of that container. What's at the bottom of your container? Yeah, have some fun with it. Well, you put them in something icky. Icky's not a very Buddhist word, right? And do something with that container of your choice. I've had lots of interesting answers to that one. Do something to the container. What would you do with it? Okay, so here's the deal with this. Again, I'm just going to have to talk you through something here. All of those details you came up with are actually symbols from your unconscious. When I did this caricature with my students many years ago, I was in an unusual circumstance. Usually writers, we have to struggle for things, and it's hard, you get rejected, and you have to fight your way to get published, right? But I was in this unusual circumstance where a publisher turned to me and said, Alex, if you write about this topic, we're going to publish you. So it's handed to me, right? The topic is, drum roll, your mentor, your teacher, who's still alive. Anybody hear some problems here? I could not write that piece. I was scared. A litter box, cleaning the entire house, anything was better than writing that piece. So I did the caricature with my students. And this is what I came up with. So my mentor, who I do love her, this is, again, my monkey mind is making her into this thing. It's not like who she really is. Her nose was like an old-fashioned stove burner. You know those coils, those like coil burners that turn red and gray and red and gray? Maybe some of you are too young, but trust me, there were stoves with coil burners. Anyway, her nose would turn red, white, red, white. And so I said to myself, why did I do that? Because her nose is perfectly natural. There's nothing like that without her nose. So I thought, what does that mean? Anybody want to take a guess? What am I really? What? What? What?
You have cold.
No! What was I worried about?
Your own nose.
No, my nose is fine.
I guess you were like over perseverating like what her nose looked like and what she was gonna think of your writing.
Exactly, because I'm worried about her getting, exactly. I'm worried about her getting angry at me. Red hot, mad, angry at me. Moreover, her clothing. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, mother's an immigrant, et cetera, et cetera. My mentor is from one of the oldest families in Massachusetts, okay? Her sweater, she had a sweater on with all kinds of boarding school decals. She didn't go to a bunch of boarding schools. It was in my imagination. So what does that symbolize, do you think, there? What's up with my sweater for her? Yes, please.
Maybe kind of strict.
Yeah, strict. And what else might be going on? Yes?
Also, this person's making it enough that you have to like fabricated images that are moving rent free in your head. You clearly have anxiety from it.
Exactly, I'm anxious. And what would you say?
Well, more disciplined.
More disciplined? You guys are very charitable. I think there's something else going on too. What is it?
You don't want to get fired.
Well, you guys, this is very deep. I'm going to tell you what I think it was, but that you might be right. Lack of confidence. I'm not good enough. Who am I? You know, she's this. That's what I thought, but it could be what you guys said too. Lack of confidence. Who am I to write about this topic? Little me compared to her. And once I realized, every time I worked on that article, that I was acting as though my mentor with this nose and that sweater was in my room. She's not in the room. I could do whatever I want. I could write profanity. I could say nasty things about her. Not that I would. Right? She would not see it in the moment. And as soon as I realized I was talking myself into that reader demon or audience ghost, I could finish the piece. Now, so to be respectful of our time, I'm going to walk you through two things very fast. I hope you're listening. As students, One thing you need to know about the mindful writing perspective is as follows. Try the next time you write to find a way, even if it's as simple as 3 deep breaths, just 3 deep breaths, inhalation, exhalation, right? Then ask yourself, what's in my mind right now for this piece of writing? Right now, without judgment, without evaluation, just write down or type whatever it is that surfaces without worrying about where it occurs in the draft. Too many people make the mistake mindlessly of thinking that starting writing has to be the introduction or the title or the thesis or whatnot. It's much better to respect yourself and enter the moment and go back afterwards. And then the last thing I would say, this is very important, when you try this method, or just mindless writing, it doesn't matter, check in with yourself at the end of each time you're working on those papers or whatever you're working. Do a little mindful self-care. And the best way that I know how to do that is by having a mantra. So I have my students come up with a 1 sentence or fragment or something that encapsulates the present moment, right? That they repeat to themselves at the end to close the session. And to close our session, I'm going to read you mine. So this is it. May each moment of your breathing be a field of words, word flowers. May your writing be free of suffering. May your writing be free of suffering. Thank you.